Greetings! Let's discuss through-ins and propaganda from the aggressor state, and I will start with the fact that even on the territory of Russia itself, their homegrown propagandists do not believe in the reality that they are trying to plant for internal consumption. In particular, pay attention to what accompanies the broadcast of the briefings of the Russian Ministry of Defense. On the map which they try to present as a map of Russia, there are no territories that they included as a result of these sham referendums, and which they are trying to present to the whole world as a new territory. Similarly, Russian propagandists, for example, one of the traitors who was previously presented as the ambassador of the so-called Luhansk People's Republic in Russia, they continue to present him in this way, despite the fact that according to the logic of these sham referendums, there cannot be an ambassador of one of territory of Russia in another territory of Russia. They join the so-called people of Russia on the territory of Russia itself. That is, the ambassador of Russia on the territory of Russia. This is complete absurdity. But Russian propagandists continue to feed their own domestic market with propaganda and false information that apparently the territories occupied in Ukraine are now part of Russia. This is a lie. Ukraine will return all land back, and the criminals who contributed to this or worked for the aggressor's propaganda will be held accountable both in Ukraine and in international tribunals. Continuing to suffer losses on the battlefield, Russian propaganda tries to at least in some way explain it for domestic consumption. And now, when they announce a retreat around Kherson, they explain it by the fact that, as they always say, foreign mercenaries have apparently arrived there. I quote the Telegram channel of the military propagandist Podubny. It is reported from the field that foreign mercenaries arrived in Mykolaiv to help the Ukrainian military, Poles, English-speaking citizens, and today it became known about the arrival of French. Why is it done? With a single purpose. In this way, Russia is trying to explain to the domestic consumer that it is not the Ukrainian army that they are losing, but rather the entire NATO alliance. The NATO fight against a Russian soldier on the territory of Ukraine, and in this way they want to justify their losses. Of course, this is a lie. Foreign mercenaries do not play a role in the counteroffensive of Ukrainian troops in the southern direction. Also, Russia is trying to remove responsibility for shelling and bombing of civilian infrastructure and residential buildings, in particular in Kyiv on Zhelanska Street, after a Russian drone destroyed a residential building, as a result of which Ukrainian civilians, including a family, died. A man and a woman who was pregnant. They tried to shift the responsibility for this to the Ukrainians themselves. In particular, the military propagandist quote stated that it seems that the residential building was hit as a result of the downing of this Iranian-Russian drone. That's exactly what happened in Kyiv. Someone with their shooting our residential areas just knocked the drone off course. There was no point in directing it to a civilian house. Quote statement is lie. The house was destroyed directly by the Iranian drone, not as a result of its downing. This happened as a result of a targeted attack by the Russian military leadership against the civilian population in order to intimidate Ukrainian citizens and force Ukraine into negotiations that are not beneficial for Ukraine. Also, taking into account that protest moods are growing in Russia itself due to mobilization, their political leadership is stopping this process, and in particular not wanting to see protests on the streets of Moscow. They stated that it turns out that the plan of mobilization in Russian capital itself has already been carried out. Partial mobilization in the Moscow region has been completed. We have fully completed the tasks of the Ministry of Defense. The delivery of summons is stopped, and those who have them in their hands may not come to the military commissariat, Russian officials claim. This is done with a clear purpose. The mobilization of Russian citizens for the war in Ukraine began to destabilize the internal political situation in Russia itself, creating a conflict between the military and political leadership. To stop this process, they stop mobilization. Also, Russia continues to search for foreign citizens who could be used in its propaganda. In recent days, it was Richard Black, whom they presented as a former American senator, has appeared on Solovyov's broadcast. He carries a propaganda trick beneficial for Russia. And if you study the biography of this person, it turns out that he was not a senator of the American Congress. He was a member of the Senate of one of the 5,000 states in the United States, the Senate of Virginia. Moreover, he has not been in this position for a long time. He worked there from 2012 to 2020. That is, Russia continues to try to influence public opinion both inside Russia and in countries, attracting foreigners. Attracting such speakers when the audience will not understand what a representative this speaker is. And maybe he has nothing to do with American politics anymore. Well, in the end, Russia's efforts to create an idea of a seemingly separate identity of the Donetsk region make us smile. This is done in order to somehow justify the annexation, in particular because of Solovyov himself. They began to spread, think about it, culinary recipes. It seems that there are some Donbas recipes, Donetsk-style chicken. Why is this being done? To make Russia's military aggression look more justified in the eyes of the Russians themselves, where this idea is gaining less and less support throughout mobilization. The briefing ends with the traditional appeal not to believe Russian liars and propagandists, to trust the Ukrainian telethon, the Ukrainian local authorities, the Ukrainian military and political leadership. See you.
Політичному керівництву. До зустрічі!